everybody, I'm Chef Chai Rivka from thelivingvision.com here with Living Tree Community Foods to share with you another divine sweet recipe. Today we are going to be doing a refrigerator fudge. It doesn't necessarily have to be refrigerated the whole time, but it needs to stay in there for the most part to stay solid. I also want to mention that we have a special guest visitor today, and that is my son Hodiah, who is playing right now, and you might hear him in the background chime in every once in a while. So let's get started. What we're going to do here, this is very simple, is start with 1 cup of almond butter. And Living Tree has a really wonderful, delicious and not so super expensive almond butter available at a lot of different grocery stores, but also online. So there's our 1 cup of almond butter. Now to that, we're going to add a few very simple ingredients. And what I'm going to start with here is 1 tablespoon of the vanilla powder. And then I'll add about a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm also going to add a 1/2 cup of melted coconut oil. And what you can do to melt your coconut oil is just heat up some water and dip your jar of coconut oil right into that water and let it sit there for about ½ an hour or so until it melts. Or if you have a dehydrator, you can always put your coconut oil in the dehydrator at 115 degrees for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and that will melt down as well. So that was 1/2 cup, and I'm putting another 2 tablespoons. Altogether, that would be 10 tablespoons. And so the last thing that I want to do for this section of the fudge is I'm taking 1 cup of coconut palm sugar, and I'm going to powder this down in my Vitamix. If you don't have a Vitamix, you can always use a spice grinder or a coffee grinder, but a Vitamix will get it finer than those other tools will get the sugar. So the best way is to have a high-speed blender. It could be a K-Tech blender or your Vitamix, and just blend it until there's no granules left and it has fully become a powder. So making sure it's all on low. Okay, there we go. That is finely powdered, and you will see some sugar steam rising. It's really fun to taste the air. Sweet air, your kids might have fun with that one. No, it's not steam, this is sugar dust. It's really fun, sweet stuff. Okay, so once you've got that, we're just going to scrape it all off of the plunger if you use that. And we'll just get everything from the blender and add that to the mix. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now we are going to mix this together carefully, just folding and incorporating all of the ingredients together. Carefully, I want to make sure that I don't spill that coconut oil. And I do recommend doing this by hand. If you use a blender, it could possibly break. You might over blend it and then the oil could separate from the almond butter, so it's best just to do it by hand. It's slower, but it doesn't take too long to get all of the ingredients incorporated. Okay, now once you've got all of the lumps smoothed out, what you're going to do now is separate just about a 1/4 cup of this into another container. So I'll just put it back into the container that the sugar was in. Okay, there's our 1/4 cup. I'm going to set that aside. Now I will be adding an additional 1/4 cup of almond butter into the bowl. And now I'll also be adding some cacao powder. And I have here a 1/2 cup of cacao powder. We're just going to sprinkle that right over the rest of the mix. And now we're going to fold all of these ingredients together for our chocolate section. There we go, it's getting nice and dark. All of our cacao is getting incorporated. And again, you just want to work this and make sure that any pockets that are still dry cacao powder are opened up, and we get all of that cacao incorporated so that no one bites into a piece of dry cacao powder. We want each morsel of our fudge to be smooth and delicious. I'm going to set this aside for a moment. We'll move our blender. And the next step is to have a pan. This is small. This is smaller than an 8x8, but the largest pan I would use would be 8x8. It's 8x8x2 would be the largest size pan I would use. But you could use any type of pan or bowl or dish that you have at your disposal. And then what I want to do with this is just grease the bottom slightly. So I'll use a little of that coconut oil and just slightly grease the bottom of the pan. And then what we want to do is line the pan with a little plastic wrap in order that we can easily remove the fudge after it sets up in the refrigerator. So when you line your pan, make sure that you have a couple inches of overhang on the sides to make it really easy to remove. And we grease the pan so that your plastic wrap would stick in there. See, so it's not moving all around, and that'll make it very easy to pour our fudge on top. So now you'll take your chocolate section of the fudge and pour it right into your pan.
Can you stop right there?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to zoom in. Go ahead.
Whoops. Hopefully you're not. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we'll just even this out a bit. You just want to spread it throughout the pan. Okay, and the next step is to marble our fudge. That's why we set aside a 1/4 cup of the pure almond section. So what we're going to do in order to marble it is I have my tablespoon here, and I'm just going to drizzle over the top in swirly patterns some of this almond fudge. So just slowly drizzling it. If you have saved your almond section in, say, a measuring cup that has a spouted lip on it, then you can just use that and pour it directly on. Again, in a nice swirly pattern. Get a lot of loops in there. You don't want to cover the whole thing up with almond butter because you won't be able to marble it that way. But this way, you have some chocolate showing, you have some almond butter showing, and if you get to the place where you feel like, if I add any more, I'm going to cover up all the chocolate, then just stop. And you can always scrape whatever almond butter you have left, the almond butter fudge section that you have left, into another container, and that will be delicious too. So set that aside. Now, I don't think I mentioned that we were going to be making a marbled almond butter fudge, but that's what we're doing. So, well, now what we're going to do is I have a chopstick, and I'm just going to gently swirl in the chocolate and the almond butter sections to make a fun marbled pattern. So you can see, actually, I used a lot of the almond butter and there's not a whole lot of the chocolate coming in, but I can pull it in from the outside to give a more dramatic chocolate effect. You don't want to over marble it because then it would just turn into one single color. There we go. I'm starting to over marble it, so I'm just going to stop right there. And it's a fun design you have on top there. Now what you want to do is take your fudge, stick it into the refrigerator or the freezer, and let it set up for a good 30 minutes to an hour until it's firm. And we'll do that with this and pull it out in a bit, and we'll show you how to serve it.